The next thing I wanted to look at was an article. So this is a Colorado Sun. It's a paper. Do they have any? They have a pretty wide-ranging amount of topics. Journalist-owned, award-winning news outlet. Cover all Colorado so that our state, our community can better understand itself. Awesome. I've read your articles before, and I'm interested to jump into this one, which is an opinion column by Trish Zornio, who I've met actually a few years ago when she was running for state senator to be like a federal senator. And so it was a robust primary with like 10 plus candidates, and she was one in there. And she's now transitioned into her political like process is doing these opinion columns. And this one, we're gonna look at with no music, just so that we're gonna get a fair reading without me going like taking any of the energy from the music itself. So this is a Colorado Sun piece by Trish Zornio titled "Colorado Democrats Are Losing Millennials Like Me." I'm also millennial, so we'll see where she goes with this. Even if we have nowhere to go. Okay. Millennials are a large Democrat in America, yet our general needs aren't being met. When is it our turn? I mean, when we claim our power, I guess in some places are like gerrymandered, and so it's hard for those certain demographics to then claim power. But technically, the plate, the pen, the power can be in our hands if we rally and organize allies and push for it. So let's see where she goes with this. It's no secret that Colorado Democrats did not have the best legislative session. It is no secret. What is my understanding of this year's Colorado legislative session? I went to 4 lobby days. Most of them were put on by environmental groups. I tracked the legislation varying amounts this year. It was hard during certain months, easier during others. It's about a 4-month-long policy session, and I went and testified on 2 bills. Maybe it was just 1. No, it was 2. It was 1 virtual and 1 in person, and then I went to take pictures one day and talk to some people. And then the 4 lobby days. The lobby days were more in the beginning to middle of the session, and there was less conversations on how things were closing out. Near the end, there was some Democratic back and forth around some housing policies, some housing taxes policies. There was some filibustering-esque attempts by the Republicans where they use a strategy where they make people read the full length of the bill in front at the pulpit. So that time, so there's only a certain amount of days of the session. So by having time people reading each word of a bill, even on some bills that are 10, 20, 30 pages long, it drags out the time. Some of they're meeting to like midnight some days to try to push things forward. I didn't hear about too many committee like committees are where bills go before they go to the general House or Senate. And so a committee of about 12 well, 9 to 12 people get to determine if any amendments are made, and then if it gets passed, to be pushed forward. And there's a time to do amendments later as well. So the committees have a lot of power. I didn't hear about too many bills going and dying unfairly, but I heard a lot of bills that got amended to not be as strong or as progressive. And then at the end, I'm going way into detail about Colorado politics. I guess it's a good exercise and showcase of, before we get into an article, how does my tracking of things go? And then near the end of the session, the last week or 2 weeks, the governor came through with a number of bills and priorities. And there were a number of bills that got introduced so that the general public can know about them, and then go to committee within a day. And so it was hard to rally, to read and then discuss a response, and then rally the environmental community if it's actually truly yes or against. And so the governor is able to use his voice and talk to his stakeholders to present things in a way where says has gone through the process and says has a coalition behind it. But when things are moving that quickly and not near the end, is it really going through the full process? So, overall conclusion, there was, I want to say, a lot of good and a handful of bad. There was a lot of first-time politicians as well as expert politicians working together on a number of bills, and at least from what I tracked on the environmental bill side, there were some good things passed. It's not as strong as I would have liked, but compared to me tracking bills going back 5-6 years when I started getting involved in learning about the Colorado legislature, I've seen bills and hopes go to die that I feel this year. That the fact that I saw a number of very positive bills get passed is a good sign that we're moving in a positive direction. And then it's just about, how do we bring people together so that we're more prepared and able to hit the ground running from the beginning, so that we don't get stopped as much in the process, that able to be organized together so that when some of these amendments and government esque tricks and last minute pushes come up, that have that coalition that's able to respond. And working over these next 6 months with these politicians and these connections made and this session behind us on what we can really do this next year. So, or next year. So that's my Colorado Ledge breakdown. Is it the best? No, but it's above average, okay, good. And I feel like for most people not in the know, it is a secret. It's no secret only to super nerdy people like me in the know who track these things. That's not. So for most people, it is a secret, actually. I'm curious what headlines you all might be hearing out there. Okay, so we'll get past the first sentence in this article. Okay. For months, Colorado, the state majority party took to battling not only across the aisle, but within itself. That happens. The infighting wasn't pretty. Sure. Forget attacks behind closed doors. That's politics of the past. The such debacles, it happened in plain sight and in no uncertain terms. Now the session has closed. Some Democrats are attempting damage control. Such efforts are fruitless. Okay, sure. Uh, those paying attention know that Republicans were only partly to blame for seeking this session. It's the most important bills. This time, the Democrats delivered the delispos. I mean, Democratic Party isn't a monolith, and we have a two-party system, so that's bound to happen. It's not awesome, and I don't love it, but um, that's how certain makeup and seats and power has fallen. Okay. Among the heaviest policy losses, is this open to were efforts towards encouraging affordable housing, rental protections, and gun safety. There was also a subversive loss for climate change in the form of unreasonable omission. These losses will not be equally felt by all Coloradans. Those in political serfdoms often speak of progressive or liberal policy as merely representing one end of the political spectrum. This suggests there's no specific people attached to the ideas, but that's not exactly true. Surveys constantly show that progressive policy is most heavily backed by voters in younger generations, um, uh, specifically by millennials like me, and Gen Z is close on our heel. Let's see. Gen Z looks a lot like millennials on key social and political issues. Among Republicans, Gen Z stands out in views on race, climate, and the role of government. Government should do more to solve problems. How do okay? Increasing racial / ethnic diversity is good for society. Okay, so she's stating facts. I mean, she comes from a science background. That's awesome. She was debated in the Colorado legislature that you should know about. And we can add this maybe in our. I want to go through this because I'm curious what's here, but we'll leave that for another time. But I love that she is citing her info, at least on some of these. Okay, liberal values are more closely aligned with members of marginalized groups, which makes sense given Millennial and Gen Z are the most diverse generations in history, come with the very nature of the word progressive. It shouldn't come as a surprise that such values more generally reflect the needs of the next generations. In this light, and given that millennials are now the largest demographic in America, a rebuttal of progressive ideology is not so much a rejection of one part of the political spectrum, so much as a covert dismissal of younger, more diverse generations. Put more bluntly, Colorado Democrats didn't simply reject progressive ideology, they outright ignored millennials and Gen Z, the largest growing demographics of their constituency. I think this is the biggest uphill battle of this decade. Old power structures don't even know how to interact or bring younger people into the fold, and so we're left with them not considering us as important or in the power structure, and we gotta figure out how to claim that space, be at the table, and not only be at the table but leading the discussions a good portion of the time, and moving in that direction. So I agree. It sucks, but I feel like most politicians, the circle of influence isn't actually that large, which mostly negative, I think, because they're leaning on a tight-knit group of lobbyists, personal connections, past biases or inputs, and then some of their trusted members around them, and don't know how to, and a lot of times younger people isn't a large block in that. I think the only positive kind of light there is when you know that, it's easier to think through how you kind of create power and influence and push into these people's circles to be that voice, which I guess is a sense one of the things we're trying to do here with community driven and inspiring groups of leaders um, to come together is we can kind of build that block and become part of that in their circles. Um, Looking back at the topics cut this session, the generational angle tracks. While affordable housing, gun safety, rental protections, and climate change can impact anyone of any age, these issues far more heavily impact younger generations. By and large, we're the ones struggling to break into housing markets and paying too much in rent. We are the ones who first survived school shootings and are now subjecting our kids to them at record-breaking pace. We are the ones who will still be alive when climate change, water supply, and well-being, not boomers, not even really Gen X. On the one hand, it's normal for every generation to face unique challenges, and these are just some of ours. What's not normal is for neither political party to seem particularly interested in courting us. Worse, the generations above us in both parties seem intent on keeping a literal death grip on control of our nation's policy, a move that isn't good for anyone in the long run, not that they'll be around to see it. I 100% agree. You see this especially at the national level, but at the state levels as well. Actually, you see this at all levels, really. Yeah. Going back into history, I wonder if this has been. I mean, it's been easier to do the past few decades with the consolidation and power grip of media since TV killed the radio star. I don't know if that. I just wanted to include that lyric. But I mean, wealth has actually done a lot of consolidation since the 1980s too, which makes it easier for them to back their players. So, and so I think both parties are courting wealth. And wealth has actually reversed courted who they want in specific seats with a pretty good win rate. Okay. Millennials Gen Z are past ready for serious change, and we need state leaders who are ready to make it happen. We need swifter action on climate change and gun safety, not out of petty interest, out of survival. We need swifter action on climate change and gun safety. Yep. We need affordable housing and upward economic mobility, not out of greed, out of the ability to retire. And yes, as the most diverse generations ever, we need more meaningful actions on social justice and equity so we can all thrive together. Perhaps so far it's easy for Democrats to take our votes for granted. Republicans jumped the shark. Where else would we go? But an anti-Trump agenda won't work forever. Although party swapping is less common, especially later in life, there's an exception: disenfranchised voters. Even if swapping to the Republican Party is not an option, we all know what can happen when voters stop turning out. Increasingly, I hear voters my age turning away from both parties. Yeah, I mean, I shy away from party stuff sometimes, or I like put caveats because I know people have like angst with both parties. Both parties are not good at really breaking down what they're going to do for the everyday person and really laying out that vision and standing next to it. What do we do? Organize stronger communities that are more issue based, and I think is what a lot of people have moved to. There's like people within the political party system, of course, and I'm sometimes wearing that hat as well. But I feel like a lot of people have moved to issue area groups. Like there's Mother's Demand, there's 350 Colorado, there's Sierra Club. Some spaces have multiple orgs. Um, and yeah, outside of a huge like paradigm shift of another party like just blossoming and then taking off really quickly, um, which is probably like not very likely, but within the realm of possibilities. Um, the other thing is you change a party from the inside, and I don't think it's a big Republican one. Um, Maybe there's young people willing in that party, willing to try to change it from the inside, but I'm not holding my breath there, and that's why I organize with Democrats, um, and I think that's like we gotta grow the power, and I see a lot of signs of like other people with the energy to do so. That does give me hope. Um, we're gonna save this one for another day. But yeah, thank you, Trish, for writing this piece. I'll look potentially at some of the other pieces you've written or you write down the line to cover as well. Um, uh, yeah. So yeah, you've been writing a lot. That's awesome. Um, cool. We should do a song. Let's play the end of that song. All right. Thank y'all for tuning in. This was the community driven stream. We played, we sang, we danced a little bit. We talked about the news. We hung out with each other. We talked about our vision for the future. Yay, yay. See you out there. Some of this music goes hard. This is just royalty-free music, no copyright music, dance and EDM. I'm on the dance and EDM section on SoundCloud. Okay, that is all.